Thanks for joining us today here on America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Forum Associates with Nolan Baker and Scott Kirshner. And myself, my name is Chris Swan. Really do appreciate you spending part of the day with us here. Here's how you reach out. 419-430-30. That's the phone number, 419-794-3030. Online, America's Retirement Headquarters.com. So if you've had enough of your job and you want to retire right now, we'll give you some things to consider. We're going to talk about how that old VCR collecting dust. Some retirement rules you're still following, and we've all seen the new pictures from NASA from the James Webb Space Telescope, but have you put your investments on the lens lately? We'll talk about all this and more, but first, let me check in with the guys. Nolan, Scott, glad to be with you as always. How you doing today?
That's good. Good to be here. I know last week we were able to sneak away on Friday, get out on Lake Erie, and do a little walleye fishing. So I hadn't been out walleye fishing in quite a long time. Had a great time. I think we threw back quite a few that were not long enough, but ended up
shorts. They call them shorts.
I think every day it goes by, the more we caught, the more pounds it was, you know.
That's right.
It was like 16, 18, 20, 25, 30, 50 pounds of fish. We could, had to haul them out of there. It was a good time, though.
It was a great time. The weather was fantastic. The lake was super, super calm, which made us troll. I can tell you, I've never done that on Lake Erie. Had a great time. Want to give a shout out to Captain Will and First Mate Mike. Had a phenomenal time with those guys, and Nolan, I appreciate the invite. We had a walleye dinner at your house afterwards, which was really, really good.
Worked out well. It was a good time.
Yeah, so Will and Mike are not people that are in the office, right? Those are actually people that you deferred to as far as getting you out there safely?
Yes, that is correct. Actually, they're clients, and Captain Will Zamansky, he's been doing fishing tours now for some 25 years, so he's a good guy, and he knows where to go to get the fish.
I think the favorite saying of the day was, put another one on the clicker, Mike.
That's right, because we had to keep track. You're allowed 6 per fisherman in the boat, and we had, I think, 10 in the boat, so put another one on the clicker, Mike. That was funny.
That's going to be a few, so I'm glad you guys had a great time, but just goes to show when it comes deferring to something that's outside of your wheelhouse, outside of your skill set, there's nothing wrong with that, and more often than not, you might have a better time for it. Keep in mind as you approach into retirement, maybe, you don't feel like you're properly prepared. That is okay, but just know where to turn. And the team at America's Retirement Headquarters, they're here for you, 419-794-3030. Let's go ahead and dive in, guys. The experts, they seem divided over for a recession. Some even say we're actually in one right now. An article from CNBC says the uncertainty fueled by 40-year high inflation and a bear stock market, giving a lot of people anxiety, and that can result in costly financial behaviors like withdrawing cash from retirement accounts. So clients and prospects cope with these feelings.
Well, it is a challenging thing. I guess when you look at the markets and the news that's out there, it can drive your emotions. I think there are very specific steps that you, our listeners, can take to, not only survive, but thrive in this type of environment. So, first and foremost, I'd say narrow your focus. Really pay less attention to bad financial news and focus more on your particular situation. Doing so, the study shows that it could save you about 75% of the stress.
Oh,
I know.
That's important.
Yeah, in my situation, when I would go over to my mom and her husband's house and stop in, it was always Fox News. It didn't matter what time of the day you went over, Fox News was on. It's kind of like, Mom, turn off the news, right? Turn on the Travel Channel. Turn something else on because, it's like that law of attraction. So, if you sit there and you watch the news and, as a media outlet ourselves, we talk about, what's the hot topic, and oftentimes it's things that are very fearful that are going out there, like the market is fearful or, greed, and those type of things can create stress. So sometimes it's okay to turn off the channel or turn it to a different channel. Maybe it's, some 70s rock. Maybe you get out there, go watch that Elvis movie, but get away from some of the negative news that's out there that'll help reduce your stress levels. The second thing is what we talk about is meet with a financial advisor. There was a Northwestern Mutual survey that found that 54% of American adults are somewhat very anxious about their finances, but that percentage drops to 46% for those who work with a financial advisor. And I think It's in difficult times like that in this environment that financial advisors are really the ones that kind of should be earning their paycheck. They're the ones that are there to kind of get you through this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of talk you off the ledge, kind of help eliminate some of that stress. And that's important because that really can affect a lot of different areas of your life. Financial, we've talked about it many, many times. Meet with your financial advisor and just to get some help. No question. Totally agree with that one.
I would do number 3 is do a worst case scenario exercise. So sometimes people call up and say, well, I need to get out before it goes to zero.
Right.
Well, if you're in a diversified portfolio between stocks, bonds, annuities, and other investments, the likelihood of it going to zero is almost zero. Right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be times that things go down, but when you look at a worst case scenario, it allows you to stress test your portfolio. We utilize software called Riskalyze, and within Riskalyze, what we can do is we can go back and we can say, let's look at what things look like if it was another 2008. If the big one is coming again, the way that your portfolio is allocated today, what would be the likely percentage that it could go down if and when the market had that major downturn. And then from there, you'd say, okay, well, how do you feel? And of course, nobody feels good when the accounts go down, but how would you respond if and when that type of environment happened? Then it would start to think about, are there things that could be done to address the situation today? We were talking in our investment committee meeting that we just did this week about what is called our protected equities portfolio. And with our hedged equity and protected equities, what it is it's a way that allows an investor to stay invested, to be able to participate if and when things come back, because, history has shown that the markets always come back, yet be able to have some downside protection that if things, get bad. One of the challenges right now is if you shift gears, right, after the market already fell, and then say now you go to cash because you want to stop the bleeding and then the markets recover, by shifting gears, you have no opportunity to get back in track. So running that worst case scenario and then looking at, instead of maybe getting in or out, maybe looking at ways to take a step left or right. Number 4 is just good old advice, probably advice that you got from mom and dad and grandma, grandpa, and that's just take a moment, breathe. I remember, if you look at my kids, 2 absolutely different kids. Carter, if he's in trouble, what he'll do is he'll usually go to his room, close the door, and it's quiet.
Sure,
I quiet down.
sure.
My oldest son, what he does is if he gets in trouble, instantly just wants to fight back, right?
Yeah, it's game on, right?
Yeah. And that never works out. Never works out, right?
Yeah.
I'm dad. I make the rules. That's how it goes. And by fighting back and, making emotional decisions, the same would be true when it comes to making financial decisions. If you allow yourself to be in the moment, it can be a costly financial mistake. So the key is in these environments is to calm down your emotional brain before you take any action. Go ahead and sleep on it. Take a week and think about it.
That reminds me, I did a lot of coaching in baseball and softball and soccer with the kids growing up. But the big thing with, is softball and baseball. And one of the rules that I had was when I had the parent meeting, I said, I have the 24-hour rule. And I really think that the 24-hour rule would really work out in this particular situation. I wouldn't talk to any parent until after a 24-hour period. Because emotions are high. Little Johnny didn't get in the game for whatever reason, and the mom and dad are all bent out of shape, and they're ready to fight, like you said. I don't talk to them. I won't talk to any parent until after 24 hours because cooler minds always prevail. You get all fired up. You start typing that big email with all of this big response into it and then you sit there and you reread it. Don't send that email. Come back to it, a few hours later or even the next day, and it doesn't sound so appealing to send that fiery email. But just like you said, Nolan, take a moment, breathe, relax, let your emotions calm down a little bit. You might find that things aren't as bad as they seem on the surface.
Yeah, we have that same 24-hour rule when it comes to hockey. So it might be a good rule when it comes to your investments too. If it works in sports, maybe it's something that we can learn from and apply to your situation. The number 5 tip is to talk about expanding your time frame point of reference. People are really laser focused on like one asset class or, one moment of time. When you see the markets dropping, just know that owning a diversified portfolio, can be helpful strategies. It can expand your time frame. I can remember a couple of years ago, there was a Christmas Eve a few years ago that was the worst Christmas Eve on record in the stock market.
Sure.
And at that point, I was actually, packing the car. I was traveling south. I was a little south of Bowling Green. My family and I were going down to Dayton to celebrate Christmas with the family down that Christmas time frame. And I had got a call with the client because the stock market's actually open for half a day on Christmas Eve. And the market was down so much, this client had called me up and they're like, Nolan, I need you and want you to get me out of the stock market today. Right. And I asked this guy, I'm like, Nick, it's Christmas Eve.
Right.
Why are you looking at the stock market today? Don't you have family plans? And in addition to that, don't worry about today. Look at what the stock market, has done over time. There's always going to be times that the market has a bad day, a bad month, and they can even have a bad year.
Right.
Take those times, though, to take a look at an opportunity of things. And, we now know, looking back, what history showed is that the decision to get out that Christmas Eve would have been a painful decision because the market the next year did great. It was actually one of the best years in the market after that. So, again, expand your frame of reference, your point of reference, expand your time frame.
Maybe he kind of went overboard on Christmas gifts and had to figure out some way to pay for them and had to
that could be.
Had to own up to it to his wife. Who knows? But you're absolutely right.
It's completely reasonable to have emotions, get in the way, for lack of a better term. I mean, we are an emotional species after all, but don't let it jeopardize your retirement plan. If you are feeling anxious about the state of things these days, if you can take a step back, that is great. Certainly, as they said, maybe turn off the TV for a little bit. Don't stick your head in the sand and just hope that it all blows over. That's not the right move, but take a little bit of detachment, maybe speak to someone, maybe speak to the team at America's Retirement Headquarters and see why you're feeling this way. Maybe you have too much risk right now. Maybe you don't have a proper tax strategy in place. Maybe you haven't accounted for insurance when it comes to your retirement and you're all realizing this. Realizing it is half the problem there, or half the solution. The other half is actually putting a plan in place, and that's where the team at America's Retirement Headquarters comes into play. So if you are concerned right now, completely fine. But before you make any rash decisions like, selling your shares and your stocks, things like that, pick up the phone, give a call, speak to the team, 419-794-3030. Or you can go online, americasretirementheadquarters.com. Have you seen the incredible pictures that NASA released from the James Webb Space Telescope? Definitely changing the way that people see space. Interesting is, the pictures aren't actually visible to the human eye until scientists go over them and enhance the colors and the light, which is pretty cool and admittedly probably pretty complicated. Now, when you guys sit down with clients to talk about their retirement plan, are you able to bust out the deep details that they need to know without overwhelming them?
Definitely an area that I like to do when it comes to looking at investments. And Scott, I'm sure you do the same thing when it comes to looking, different choices on health insurance and benefits.
Absolutely.
Even if you look at like long-term care, there's 36 or so different choices when it comes to long-term care, like in-home care, adult daycare, nursing home, elimination periods. But, when we go back and we look at it, on the investment side, slicing and dicing it makes a ton of sense. When we create an investment policy statement for a client, the first thing that we do is we take and we input all of the information into our software. Then what we're trying to do is we're trying to take a look for how can we get the portfolio positioned in a way that gives the client the best potential return for the level of risk that they're willing to take. And through that microscopic lens, what we're able to do is really develop what their risk score is. So we measure risk anywhere from 0 to 100, with 100 being the highest. And then from there, the software will give us a GPA score. GPA score is like kids in high school and college, and the software can give you a GPA score as high as 4.3. So somebody had a risk score, as an example, of 70 with a GPA score of 3.6. That'd be somewhat what one might refer to as more of an aggressive type portfolio. Sure. And maybe an average level grade. Not bad, but maybe has some areas and room for improvement. The great thing about technology today, though, is, with technology being the fact that I've done this for, 28 years now, is technology really allows us to dive even deeper than what we could years ago. So, number nerds like me, what I can do is we can go into a portfolio and we can look at like beta. So beta is a measurement of risk. The S&P 500 has a beta level of 1.0. So if we did an analysis and somebody's portfolio had a beta of 1.2, that would mean that it's about 20% more risky than the overall broad market. So beta is a number that people want to know. Alpha and Sharpe ratios, looking at things like your excess return, looking at the correlation of the portfolio. One of the things that I like about the software is I like looking at what the capture ratio is. So in our software, what it can do is it can take a look at when times are good, what percentage of the upside is somebody able to participate in? And then when times are bad, how much of the downside are they participating in? Mm-hmm. So we did this analysis. Actually, it was somebody that was working with your company, Scott, AMA, and you introduced them to us. And when we put the number in there, they were getting about 80% of the good stuff, the upside, but taking 120% of the bad. So by looking at that number, it's kind of flipped against them.
Sure.
It's kind of like the guy at the casino who's sitting on the other side of the table, right? The deck of cards was stacked against them.
Right.
It's not to say that, they're not going to flop a blackjack here and there, but the odds are over time the house was going to win. So in this scenario, when we look at upside downside capture, we want to make our clients the house. We want to put the deck of cards in their favor. Again, it doesn't mean that sometimes it's not going to go in the house's favor either.
Sure.
It just means that more often than not, when we look at an upside downside capture, then we look at the diversification as far as what equity classes you're in, what style boxes that you're in. We know that there's certain sectors that perform well in rising interest rates. Are you positioned in the correct manner there? And finally, looking at it from a risk-reward scenario using modern portfolio theory to see, are you positioned in a scenario that gives you the potential to achieve the outcomes that you're looking for, and doing it with trying to minimize the proper level of risk. So I love to use the telescope to slice and dice and look at things really deep when we're looking at the investment portfolio. Scott, when we're looking at like health insurance,
sure.
My wife and I, we'll sit down with you towards the end of the year and we'll kind of, go through the different options on the open market. There's so many different choices that you have too when you're doing a telescope view or a microscope view of looking at those choices. Maybe why don't you touch on some of those?
Oh, absolutely. When you look at the the marketplace, when you have the option, if you're under 65, to sign up for health care, you're looking at, in this area alone, 78 different plans. Well, that's over 5 different companies. So there's 78 options over 5 companies. So one of the things that I do is I take that, telescope view, so to speak, and I eliminate a good portion of those that aren't going to really pertain to you. Some of them maybe have poor networks. Some of them aren't going to offer the out-of-pocket expense coverage that we've talked about prior to the meeting. So I'll dive into that and really get into the nuts and bolts on how much do you want to pay on a monthly basis and what kind of coverage are you going to get for that. There are high deductibles. There are the bronze, silver, and gold plans, which give you all kinds of different coverages. So you can have a plan that'll give you a high deductible, have what's called an HSA tool attached to it, which will allow you to invest money. That money is yours. Health savings accounts I'm a huge fan of those. That allows you to put a portion of the money into a savings account and get a 100% tax write-off. We all want to save money on taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things we do with the Unaffordable Care Act, as I always like to refer to it as. And then when it comes to Medicare, I remember when Friday at your house last Friday, there was a commercial and Jimmy Walker came on, and I think one of the people that were there with us says, "Hey, look, there's Jimmy Walker." Well, yeah, Mr. Dynamite talking about Medicare. And, that's going to really ramp up when it gets closer to September, October during the annual enrollment period. But one of the things that, you hear with those commercials is, you've got zero premium, you've got dental, vision, hearing, prescriptions, you've got gym memberships, meals, transportation, all for that zero premium, right? Well, what they're not telling you is what I tell you. So, part of our, meeting process with me is we'll sit down and we'll go through all of that information, all of the different plans available to you, and then we'll really pinpoint in on what coverages each one of those companies and plans are going to offer for you. Those are advantage plans. So, you're right. Taking that telescopic view and fine-tuning it down really is something important that we do.
Yeah, so we do it from the investment standpoint. Then we'll do it for people that are looking to retire before the age 65 that need to get health insurance. We'll do it even at 65 to look at what your Medicare options are and decide, what type of plan may be the best option for you and your family for your situation. And then, ultimately down the road to looking at it from a long-term care perspective.
Right.
So for long-term care, we've both been in the industry for a long time. In the past, there used to be a lot of different long-term care companies that you could pick from. And what's happened is the long-term care industry has mispriced a lot of those types of policies that are out there. So many of the companies and choices for long-term care have gotten out of the business. And those that are left are doing everything they possibly can. I have a meeting coming up later this week with a client. He's 92. He's had his long-term care for a long time. He's got, I would say a Cadillac policy. But he received a letter this week that they had approval from the state that over the series of the next 3 years, they're going to raise his premiums by 87%.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what they got approval to be able to raise his rates. And he's like, at 91, I don't know, can I afford almost doubling my cost? But at the same point, at age 91, can you afford not to have that coverage?
Right, absolutely.
So those are the things that you take a look at. When we look at it, and you're looking at policies, the things that you have to consider is first and foremost is what type of care do you want to have in your type of policy. So when we think about this, we can think about care from home to assisted living, adult daycare, or nursing home. Oftentimes people will focus on the nursing home care, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't take a look at that, because that's the big whammy that typically wipes a family out.
Yeah, absolutely.
With nursing home costs, it could be $10,000 a month. But I don't know. I have yet to meet somebody that says, if down the road I'm going to end up and want to go into a nursing home, right? Yeah, although it is 8 to 1, I think, female to male ratio. So maybe not a bad plan for an older man.
Right. Well, I'm working on that very issue, with my mom, and there are a plethora of different options available, and you really have to, like you said, you really have to know what you're looking at, and that's part of what you and I both do. Like you said, we've both been in this business 28 years, and we've seen a lot of those things. The new long-term care plans are what they call hybrid plans, right? I mean, it's a life insurance policy that has a long-term care rider added onto it, and the numbers show that anywhere from 1 to 3 years is your average stay. Not many people are in a long-term care facility past that, but there are so many different levels. I mean, the assisted living level is where a lot of people go into, and you really can get an apartment, and you'll get people that check on you. You're in the facility. You can go to the dining hall. You can mingle with other people, the same age. The old stigma of you put mom and dad in a nursing home and they, tie them to the bed and lock them up, so to speak. That's just not the way it is. And I've toured several facilities. There are good ones. There are bad ones. It's in any industry there's good and bad. But I tell you what, you don't want to get in a situation where you're sitting at home by yourself and you're not living. You're not going to bingo. You're not going to the music that they have. They took mom down when she was in there for a week. They took her down to the kitchen and they baked cookies. So a lot of those type of things are what you can get in a assisted living or long-term care facility. So it's important to know what you get and what your policy is going to cover, so you can get enjoy the rest of your life, so to speak.
Yeah, and we started out by talking about NASA and doing an analysis of what things look like, and using either a telescope or a microscope to drill down and look at things in detail. And I'm sure everybody that's listening and watching, today you have investments, you have health insurance. It's oftentimes you just assume that everything's going to work out fine, and it's not until something bad happens that you figure out, I didn't realize I didn't have that in place. And so before that happens to you, It never hurts to have a second set of eyes take a look at it. Scott's got a lot of experience and knowledge looking at company benefit plans, whether it's what you have through work, maybe COBRA options if you're looking to retire early. What would that look like? How to position your portfolio to maybe help keep your healthcare costs down. Things like, how would your Medicare premium costs double and what steps can you take to avoid that? Down to choosing the long-term care. And, the thought process in looking at the long-term care, again, I was saying nursing home is $10,000 a month. But,
Right.
A lot of times people end up in a nursing home because they lose that control and independence.
Sure.
So if we focused first and foremost about instead of how to just pay for a nursing home, but we develop a plan that says, if you need help, how do we help keep you out of a nursing home? By focusing on that, then we can develop a policy that's really focused on, helping you maintain control and independence around home. And if you think about help around home, Molly maids or some home health care services,
Absolutely.
or having somebody mow the yard and take care of things is typically a lot more affordable than it is the full-blown care.
Yeah, absolutely. And Medicare, just so all of you listeners out there, viewers are out there, Medicare is going to give you some home health care. But just like Medicare or health insurance in general, it does not cover long-term care. So you can get some home health care from Medicare, and it's actually paid at 100%, but you're limited to exactly how many days like maybe once a week up for maybe six visits or something like that. So properly preparing to keep you at home, and like you said, Nolan, some of those things that get the home health care, a visiting nurse, those are very, very popular, is a lot less expensive in certain situations than going into a skilled nursing facility or a long-term care facility.
Just like with the photos from the James Webb Telescope, if you would show them to your layperson, you wouldn't really know what to look at until you had a professional, the scientists at NASA, show you what you're actually looking at. This is a galaxy. This is this is a planet. This is a star system. Things like that. Same sort of thing when it comes to your retirement plan. You may not necessarily know the details that you need to be looking at. You need to consider. But as they say, the devil is in the details, and what you don't know could become a bigger problem if you don't have someone help you shine a light on that. Whether it is long-term care, whether it is being overextended in your risk when it comes to your retirement. All good things to find out before you are in the thick of it. And to get started with America's Retirement Headquarters, real easy. Pick up a phone, give a call, 419-794-3030. Schedule a time there. Click on the events tab, by the way. There's a couple of events coming up. Some this coming week being taught at the BGSU campus at Levis Commons. Get more information about that, including how to reserve your seat by going to americasretirementheadquarters.com. There's more to come here on the show. The land of the Great Resignation continues to provide stories. We've got another one coming up after the break. Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys formula with Nolan Baker and Scott Kirshner. 419-794-3030 is the number. Online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. If you missed the first half of the show or previous editions of the show, you just want to catch up, go to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever your medium of choice is. Just search for America's Retirement Headquarters, and episodes there on demand for you. Again, 419-794-3030. That's how you reach out. Guys, a friend of mine is shopping for financial advisors and is actually thinking about going with one from their bank because of the convenience of it. They might even qualify for free checking as an incentive, but I have to imagine that the planning that happens at a bank is different. How does it differ from what you guys offer?
Well, I think there definitely can be some differences that are out there. And first and foremost, what I want to say is thanks to David Seeger, because back when I was going to college and I was taking financial management at the time, I went to Owens and University of Toledo. At this time I was at Owens, and David Seeger was one of my professors. He had given me the opportunity to come down and run the financial services arm there at Great Lakes Credit Union, and it really kind of launched my career. So still to this day, I greatly appreciate Dave Seeger and what he did to help me out. But, at that time I was kind of a young kid. I was learning the ropes, and, I had asked some people, I said, well, how do you really sell financial services? And, somebody had given me their mutual fund playbook and said, here's how you go out and pitch stuff, right? And that's not to say the case. I can also think of somebody who is a financial advisor in town, and she also works at a local bank here and, has quite a bit of experience. So, it's not so much about the firm, although I think what makes us different here is, number one, being independent. So being independent, we have the ability where, we can take a look at, what products that are out there and not have any type of an agenda to push one particular product or another. And, I would say the other thing is, your bank advisor maybe is convenient, but it's not a free financial advisor. There's things like minimum accounts that you want to continue to have and maintain services. There's things that you have to look out for. If you go with the bank's financial advisor, you have to also keep in mind that when you're dealing with some of the investments and most of the investments, these are things that are not FDIC insured in the investment accounts. Maybe a misconception that out there, but your funds that are involved in brokerage accounts, they fall under a different arm than FDIC insurance. And then you also want to take a look at how bank financial advisors get paid. So somebody who's paid entirely on commissions may be more likely to suggest products that don't necessarily fall into what your best interests are, and they could be serving the best interests of somebody else.
My first legitimate job, so to speak, it was actually at a bank. I got my first job back in 1980 working in a bank. I've worked in a couple of banks. And one of the things that I've always noticed about banks, if you think about what banks, how they make their money, obviously they invest on the money that you invest with them. But they're also heavy in fees. A lot of things that banks make their money on is they're fee generated. Your overdraft fees and your credit card fees and the service fees in general, and that's what banks have been notorious for as long as I can remember. So like you said, Nolan, a financial advisor. Actually, I know someone that actually got a plop from of money from a retirement and took that money and put it in the bank and invested it with someone at the bank, and they were like, this is not what I thought it was, and I'm not really getting a whole lot of advice or service here. And like you said, the banks are kind of restricted when it comes to what are they going to allow you to do, because, think about it. The president of the bank is the one calling the shots. At the end of the day, the management and the presidents of the banks are the ones that are actually calling the shots. So, we all need banks. I think banks are good. I think that, just buyer beware, right?
Yeah, I'd say, it could be the case anywhere, with any financial advisor, even, some people out in the independent space, there's good and there's bad.
Sure.
I think, part of it comes down to there's certain things that you should do. So for those of you who are looking for a financial advisor, let me give you a couple tips on, what I think would be good ways to determine who might be the right investment professional for you. So the first thing is you want to ask for 5 references. Those references could be professional references, and they can also be client references. Now, it's fair to say that I think anybody would give you, references of people that like them, right? That makes sense. What you're trying to do, though, is I would encourage you to call those references. That's number 2, is you got to call those references. And it's not so much asking them about the performance of how that investment professional did. You're really wanting to find out about the experience. So like what you talked about, Scott, how proactive are they? When the markets go down, are they reaching out to you? What type of educational events are they having to keep you informed about law changes, rule changes? What product offerings do they have? Those are good things. Number 3 is ask if they charge fees for their service. And so again, nobody at the bank or even independent financial advisors, nobody works for free. And if they're not charging fees, they must be making money from the sale of financial products. If 100% of their income comes from the sale of financial products, they need to keep up for selling for more people that don't buy. And in this case, how many clients can they handle?
Right.
And do they get to a point where they're almost overwhelmed with too many clients that they have? If they don't charge fees, then ask them how you can be sure that the advice that they get is going to be provided in your best interest. This topic of having a fiduciary is something that's been a hot topic that's out there. Again, what I would generally say is I give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Whether it's the car industry, our industry, or realtors, or any professional that's out there, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt that they are doing what they're doing because they love and they're passionate about getting you into your dream house, getting you into your dream vacation on the Viking River cruise or whatever that happens to be. But there are certainly a percentage of those people that are out there that, maybe are out there just and don't have your best interests in place. So you want to ask a little bit about, again, how they get paid and how to make sure that that advice that they give you is in your best interest. If they don't provide, financial planning, the question becomes, how do they ensure that the products are right for you?
Right.
If they're just out pitching a top-rated fixed annuity account and they're not taking into consideration your entire financial picture, how can you know that that advice is good for you based upon looking at your total picture? I mean, one of the things that we like to do is we really like to look at the comprehensive approach. So again, it's how do you better manage your money, protect your hard-earned assets, and efficiently plan your estate. Being independent, we see the great rates that are out there too. Mm-hmm. But just putting in somebody in an investment because it's a great rate may not be the right thing. In our previous segment, we were talking as the example of how some of these life insurance policies have critical, chronic, and terminal illness riders on them.
Right.
So in certain situations, when you ask all of the questions and you're looking at it from a comprehensive approach, the life leverage plan might actually end up being the better option for somebody in their situation than, say, a fixed annuity, which maybe that's the only option that they offer at that particular plan. So again, if there's no plan that's prepared, how are they going to make sure that without having a plan that the products are in the right place? So it's kind of like having surgery without an exam. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't go to WebMD.
No.
Or try to look at it myself. If you go to WebMD, it's like anything you look at, you could have a minor headache. It's like you're dying.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. These are all of done. That's kind of like what we talked about in the first segment. You know what? Turn off the news. WebMD is not the place necessarily to go to do a self-diagnosis. You're going to find that you've got all kinds of crazy things going on.
I mean, a lot of the financial professionals in our industry act as a consultant. And that's one of the ways that our firm works is, people will hire us typically for our advice, and they might pay us a flat fee to develop an overall financial plan. And, then we're breaking down the CFO checklist to go through all of these action items. So if you're working with a professional, they are charging a fee. Ask how much of that fee that they have to pay up front, Generally, what I would say is you want to pay like half of the fee up front, half of the fee when the planning process gets done. And that way you're going to ensure the satisfaction of, how your products are. Number 9 is to look at the investment professional's financial background. Mm-hmm. Our record, your record. You can look up people in the Ohio Department of Insurance if they're from here in Ohio under the agency locator or agent locator. You can look at the agency. You can look at the agent. People in the securities business are regulated by FINRA broker check, and the SEC advisor info also has background information. So that information is very helpful when you're looking at somebody's background to know how long they've been in the business. I've been through the crash of 2008, the flash crash of 2020. Heck, I've been in the market back in the 2000, 2001, 2003, where you had 3 years back to back. And
right.
I think there is something to say about experience, once you go through that experience. And I know it's challenging for young people to get involved in our business, but there's something to be said about experience. Looking at somebody's background will tell you about, some of the licensing. Do they have a professional designation? Maybe where do they go to college? What degree did they get? If they have any customer complaints, what do the customers say about them? Even things like Google reviews. I mean, Google, you can type in the name of the business and take a look and see, what it says on Google, where you're looking for more of what their experiences are. Number 11 is looking at, how do they keep up with the constantly changing financial environment? We've had to adapt, quite frankly. And
absolutely.
Being in the Marine Corps, I just love adapt. That's something that they taught us to do. But in this world, you have to adapt to the changes that are occurring and not be stuck in this is how we have always done it. I love Boy Scouts of America. I have an Eagle Scout, and hopefully in a couple, maybe a year or two, we'll be able to say I have 2 Eagle Scouts. So I got one on the way. But, and my experiences in different events that we've done in different places around the U.S., we have gone into different things. And, I've heard some of the, people that are running that type of event say, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Right.
You know, well, for 25 years, this is the way you've always done it. May not necessarily be the best way today. Things change.
Absolutely.
It's
No
okay
question.
to change. And I can think of, you know, one event, which was the Pinewood Derby. My son had been able to go in for design. Well, he had to get there super early in the morning. And, of course, they play hockey, so it conflicted with hockey. Well, you know, we sat there for hours and hours and hours because they did the racing first, and then they did the design second. You know, so dumb me, I just asked, well, why don't you just have a time slot where they come in for design?
Right.
You know, why do we have to be here for racing? He's like, well, this is how we've always done it. And then one of the guys from Troop 101, him and his father had taken over the program and changed it up. And, you know, sometimes that was positive. So, again, you know, when it comes to the financial world, you're going to want to talk about, you know, how much and how often are they keeping up with the changing environments? What steps are they taking to stay ahead of the game? I know, you know, two of our guys are going to be heading off here in a couple weeks to operational training down in Atlanta. We do a lot of stuff with Charles Schwab and their training programs that they have because things change all the time.
You know, Nolan, so for those people that aren't really sure, you know, you think about a bank, you think it's a financial organization, and you would assume that, you know, obviously a bank, you deal with money, right? So a financial advisor at a bank has to have all of the same certifications and licensing that anybody in a financial advising firm would have, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I look at a bank, and this is just me, and I'm not bad-mouthing banks. I've been, like I said, I worked 20 years in a bank. I look at the bank and I'm like, okay, I've got all of my accounts. I've got my checking, my savings. You know, maybe I've got a commercial account there if I own a business. And I'm just going to take some of my money and put it over here and invest it. I've never really had the comfort level myself personally, knowing that if I really want to make my money work for me, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to a guy that actually does this. That's what he does all day long. And I'm not saying that the financial advising people at the banks don't do that, but you know, you've got your personal bankers that know you personally and know, you know, you may have a certain threshold on account balances and things like that, and you get assigned a personal banker. They may be the ones that are going to ask those questions. They're going to prepare that portfolio for you because of the amount of money you've got with the bank, right? But if you're somebody that's got $50,000 and or $100,000 or $150,000 and you go talk to the financial advisor at the bank, are you really going to get all of that? You know, I don't know that answer, but for me personally, I would rather talk to someone that's been in it. You know, we always say having a financial advisor to get you to retirement is one thing, right? But to get you through retirement, you got to change gears. You know, you have to really be able to change gears and get you through that retirement. So, someone like yourself that does this day in and day out, actually 7 days a week, because I know how you operate. Yeah, I mean, you're the kind of guy I want on my side, or a financial advising firm like ours is definitely where you want to be.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott, and I'll make sure that I buy you lunch after this for all those great
I
comments.
appreciate
But,
that.
you know, it does bring up the final thought on this particular topic, which is, you know when to bring an outside professional into the case and ask which outside professionals do they bring into cases. So, you know, one of the reasons I'm blessed that we're able to work together is I knew how important it was to coordinate the health insurance business with the financial decisions that people make, which goes in hand with the tax decisions that people make, which goes in hand with the estate planning decisions that people make. You know, people cannot be the jack of all trades.
Right.
You know, we have really chosen to become specialists in focusing at, you know, helping people transition from their working to retirement years, and that's the area that we have become really good at. There's a time that I was at a conference. I was up in Detroit, and we were at an investment conference that was out there, and I remember this guy, he got his business card and it folded down. Have you ever seen a fold down business card?
That's
It's
too much on there.
It was like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, college planning. We do roofing. We do rotate card. So here I was at the conference, right? It was hilarious. It was like what you would picture of, this is the financial advisor I'm not going to hire. There again, I'm in Detroit, right? So I put my phone up to my head and I was going to try to take a picture of this guy to send it to the office. What I didn't realize is my flash was on.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Whoops. So the cat was out of the bag. I took this picture of that guy. But, you want to work with somebody who's knowledgeable about a specific area. If I have a heart issue, I don't want to just go to my general practitioner. Right. I don't want to go to WebMD. I want to go to a cardiologist that's been in the business for a long time, that's performed hundreds, if not thousands of heart surgeries and knows exactly, where to pinpoint, where to focus on. And if he's not the guy, I need to know he knows the guy or girl that he can bring in to help out in those situations. And so I think, all of those things, and if you're taking into consideration how to pick a financial professional, I think all of those tips maybe will help point you in the right direction.
I run into that all the time where people will ask the questions, and, I'm so confused with Medicare. I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. I'm still working. Last week I talked with, I had a referral from the guys up in the Ann Arbor office, which was awesome. And then we had a great conversation, and she was so excited about all of the information I told her that she referred her sister. So I talked to her sister, and her sister was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't talk to you sooner. She referred a friend of hers. And she said, I was told that if I don't sign up for Medicare, I've got all these penalties and all of this information. It was really funny. I talked to 3 different people all in a matter of an hour and had great conversation with all of them. But that, to circle back to what you said, know when to bring in a professional and know when to have, if there are sometimes I don't know all the answers. And I admit and tell them, but I have the resources available to find the answers to make sure that you're getting the proper information told to you.
It's kind of like we talked about at the beginning of the show when you guys mentioned, last week going out to Lake Erie and being able to fish for a while. And, you guys had a captain, you guys had a first mate. It wasn't you guys. Could you have done it on your own?
Nope.
Possibly. Would it have been as enjoyable? I don't know. It's not like you guys had a pretty good time. It is okay to defer to professionals. I've mentioned my son here on the show before and, his medical issues and when they really ramped up. Our pediatrician, who I still love dearly, said, we need to bring in some outside sources. And so there was a cardiologist, there was a nephrologist, there was a neurologist. And thankfully, we've been able to take some of those off of our books. But, each of them having their own skill set, being able to look at it piecemeal. And that's what you need when it comes to, retirement. You don't want that folding business card, like you talked about earlier. You want, people who really specialize in what they do. And that's why it's called America's Retirement Headquarters. That's why, it's America's Medicare Associates. It's not, America's Health Insurance Associates, although, you can't help with that. But really, Medicare is really your forte, and retirement is really the forte for the team at America's Retirement Headquarters, who, by the way, over 100 years of combined industry experience. They have seen the ups and downs. They have seen your 2001s. They have seen your 2008s. They've seen, market fluctuations before that. So gotten people to retirement, through retirement, and beyond that. I think they're worth giving a call to, again, if you have questions about your retirement or Medicare or any of the things that go into it, because it is a different game. It's like the difference between college football and the NFL. There's minor tweaks here and there, and not knowing those rules, not knowing those changes could be the difference between winning or losing. So pick up the phone and give a call, 419-794-3030, or go online, schedule a time there as well, americasretirementheadquarters.com. Don't forget to click on the events tab over there to find out more information about the upcoming classes they have, some actually coming up in the coming week. You can get more information about those, including how to go and reserve your seat. americasretirementheadquarters.com. Guys, the pandemic experience continues to persuade more to change career plans. Among the latest, Christy Paul, who spent the last 9 years anchoring early weekend mornings on CNN. She recently announced she's leaving the network and moving back to native Ohio.
I am part of the Great Resignation. Back in 2020, for those of you who might know, my husband had COVID. It was really bad for about 3.5 weeks, and there were moments I thought I was going to be a single mom. I just could not be who I needed to be for my family, is what it really came down to. I was tired of being tired. Nobody else is going to be my kid's mom, and nobody else is going to be my husband's wife or my parents' children, and I need to be fully present there.
I mean, you can really easily pick up on the emotion in her voice there. Christy, she's only 53, but she's leaving a high-pressure job to increase her quality of life and be around the people she loves. To me, that's kind of the textbook definition of retirement. So let's talk about some of the emotions that come out as you bring your clients through the whole retirement planning process.
Well, this, you could definitely tell the emotion in her voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing this a lot. I'm seeing where a lot of people are, especially in the health industry, what I'm seeing around here is they've had it. They're at, the stress levels are over the top for them. And they're coming to me and saying, well, I was going to work until I was 67, 68, but they're 64 years old and saying 65 and I'm out of here. And, like I said earlier, your health is very, very important. And if you don't have that, all of the money in the world is not going to really keep you happy and keep you healthy. It's a good start, and you still have to be able to get up and do the day-to-day activities, especially enjoy your family. I mean, here she is, 53 years old, and I guess maybe on CNN it would have to be a very stressful situation, but you have to take care of yourself. And one of the things that I'm running into is people are retiring at 65. They're signing. I've got some people that are retiring prior to 65, and I'm looking to get them into the Unaffordable Care Act or even signed up for Medicare. There was about 5 years there or more where the market was doing well. People were making a lot of money, and you would think that they would want to retire, but they're making money, and investments are doing well, and they're working past 65, 67, 68 years old because they were enjoying life. They were making money, their investments were doing well, and they were enjoying everything going on. And that has really changed. I've seen that really, really change over the past probably 18 to 24 months. Is that what you're seeing, Nolan? I mean, that's really...
Yeah,
nice.
I mean, I think the last couple of years make you realize that life is short, and, you've got to take into consideration, the beginning part of COVID, it was like I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew COVID, but, now I can say I know people, unfortunately, who've, lost their life to COVID, and it really kind of makes you step back and say, wow, I can think of a client in particular. I'm like, wow, he ran, he walked, he was exercise every single day, and then, things can happen in a hurry, and it happens in a hurry even, in situations where, you don't know how life will play out. So you do have to do things that are healthy for your health. At the same time, you have to be financially confident to make it through.
Absolutely.
To be able to get you through some of those. So again, I'm being biased, but I would say talking with a financial advisor is a really good idea. I think our fishing boat captain was a great story of somebody, who's taken maybe a step left, if you will.
Yeah.
So you get to redefine retirement. Like for me personally, going out there on the boat and being a fishing boat captain, maybe not every day, but having the luxury to pick and choose what days I want to do it, could be a good retirement. So,
retirement,
he worked in corporate America for quite a few years. He took a retirement. And it sounds like, for the past several years, he's been going out on Lake Erie, taking people out fishing, which, it seems like he had a great time, makes a little extra money. He's able to put money in his pocket, able to get away from that stressful environment, be able to be out there and say fish on and, just eat some ham sandwiches and have fun with people and invite people that he wants to. And he kind of controls his own schedule, deciding if he wants to take a whole day or, if he wants to fish for the morning or fish for the afternoon. You got a lot of flexibility of being able to redefine your retirement. So there's a lot of pros of being able to do it. I have seen a lot of people, with the great resignation saying, you know what, I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
I know just this last weekend, what we saw is another law change in the great state of Chicago. I think they just passed a law that says if somebody runs from you, if you're a police officer and you're, pull somebody over and they run from you, you're no longer able to chase them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
you
crazy.
Got to let them go.
Yeah.
And so my kid was watching this on the news this week, and he's like,
What did he say to that?
it's like, if I'm a criminal, what are you telling the criminals to do, right?
Yeah.
And so think about how Chicago has turned their back on police officers.
Yep.
And some of these other cities have too. Now, we had the luxury, we had an opportunity to interview the fire chief, Allison Armstrong, a couple of weeks ago. You talk about the difference of somebody who's building, our community versus some of these cities who are taking away from our community. It's a big difference. And in those environments, I mean, it would be tough, right? It'd be tough to get up and go to work every single day when the person who's making decisions is making decisions against you all the time.
If I'm a police officer in Chicago, there is no question the stress level has got to be unbearable.
Yeah, why would you want to do that?
And if you're close to retirement, you're out of there.
Yeah, so
I mean, I'll go work somewhere, get a boat, like you said, and I do see that. I see people getting out of the job that they were in that they just don't like anymore, and they're moving to something a lot less stressful just to stay busy, but they're not dedicating their life to that job like they did before.
Yeah, all things that we can help with too. So, for those of you that are ready to retire or thinking about retirement, you're ready to go from success to significance. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you out.
Again, it's all about running the numbers beforehand. Make sure that it's feasible, that it's going to work, and hopefully, once you do retire, you can stay retired unless you choose to go back into the workforce and something out of necessity. It comes down to running the number. So here's the number I want you to keep in mind: 19794-3030. That's the number. That's how you get in touch with America's Retirement Headquarters. Schedule a time. Start putting that plan in place. Whether it is to take some of that emotional stress out of just the planning process. Whether it is to see if retiring early is feasible. Maybe it is just talking about long-term care. Whatever your concerns are when it comes to retirement, real easy to get in touch with. Again, 419-794-3030. Always online, americasretirementheadquarters.com. Want to thank you for spending part of your day with us here on America's Retirement Headquarters. Please have a great week ahead of you. Have a safe week out there. And guys, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
Yeah, great quote this week from Winston Churchill. It's success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week, same time, same channel, right here on WSBD Radio.